It was only a few weeks ago that I came on, said, no, James Harden, no Kyrie Irving, there's no way. But like we saw with Bradley Beal, the NBA is drunk and anything can happen. On today's episode of Locked On Suns, the latest Suns free agency rumors on those two, plus more minimum options. Oh, and Bradley Beal was introduced today as well. Talk about it all on today's show. Let's go.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And we're back. This is Locked On Phoenix Suns. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, and I'm your host, Brendon Kleen, a credentialed media member covering the Suns for the past 6 seasons, a writer at Suns.com, and the host of the Just Basketball Show, wherever you get your podcast. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen to start free agency day. It is a Friday. It is the beginning of the craziest time of year in the NBA. Thank you for finding us wherever you listen to podcasts. We're free and we're everywhere, including YouTube. So hit follow or subscribe. Become an everyday or get locked onto the Phoenix Suns every day throughout the offseason and beyond. Joining me as he does every week is Aaron Edwards to kick us off here for free agency. I would say we're closing out the week, but there will be more shows as the signings come in. And who knows, with the craziness that's being reported today, it very well could be more than just those minimums. But I don't want to take it too seriously. We're going to talk through it. We're going to air out our thoughts here on James Harden, on Kyrie Irving. I just want to ask you this to start things out, Aaron. Do you put either of these things as more than a 10% chance of happening, or do you think the Suns are just the hot team to use as leverage?
It's less than 10, but like a lot. I think Ishbia wants the ball hard and show his paycheck and like his like checkbook and all that, but he's also not dumb. And so I think he's fine with being used as leverage against somebody else. But he knows they all know better. I think I want to hope that they know better. So I think that's mostly what I'm going with. I hope that they know better.
I guess. So you're saying that basically under the basic assumption that like these guys are both going to make an absurd amount of money, and so even if there was a sign and trade option, which is not really an option, by the way, because the Suns are at the luxury tax line, that it would be unfeasible. I think that's fair. James Harden. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm saying, but he's also a businessman. They are all business people. So I think just taking a meeting with Kyrie, just go and talk to him. That's fine. But I don't even know where that conversation would start. Do you just want to sit in a room with Kyrie and just bull around knowing that you can't sign him? I wouldn't waste my time doing it. But if they're willing to do it, then let them do it.
So I guess my thing is the Harden thing I don't think is very realistic. I think there's a random account. Have you seen this account online that is like,
yes, they've kind of been
crap,
yeah.
Right? It's called NBA analyst or something like that. And he doesn't even have a profile picture.
They've been getting it. People keep sending it to me.
It's called the Amateur NBA Analyst, and it's at Dropping Dimes 20. And this dude said that Harden that the Suns were one of the Harden teams. But just to actually flesh out what I mean when I say the hard cap and everything else, because I know those rules are weird, and I know that people are the second apron is new to people, and where the Suns are luxury tax wise is unforeseen territory, uncharted territory after the Robert Sarver era. So basically, if you make a sign and trade, if you receive a player in a sign and trade, which is what the Suns would basically have to do with Ayton to get anybody of this caliber, you get hard capped at the first luxury tax apron, which is like $172 million. If the Suns get somebody who even makes the same amount as Ayton back in a trade, they're already verging on like not being able to build out a roster and that trade not even being legal. If they took somebody back who made more, then it's even less likely that it would ever be possible. So even in a sign and trade situation, you're talking about some weird scenario, probably 3 teams, something crazy where Ayton goes to a team maybe with some cap space, and then the Suns get a Harden or Kyrie on some super bargain deal, and it just none of that seems likely. Neither of these guys taking the minimum seems likely. At the same time, there's just a weird part of me that's like, these guys are unpredictable, and using the Suns, who can only every real person who works in the NBA would know all of that.
Yeah,
so that's the part of me that I'm just like, why would they even be trying to use the Suns as leverage when we all know the Suns aren't a team that can do anything to give you leverage? That's the weird part of it.
Yeah, that's the part that like draws pause, because it's like, they know that we know, like, so why even do this? So it's not like, so it's either you're doing this for a real reason and you're not just trying to shake the table, like you're willing to kind of do something crazy against your own, like against your own self, pretty much taking that big of a pay cut to even take that meeting. We all know that that has to be the only option if you even meet with the Suns, that you're not getting what you're worth. So yeah, either they know that we all know that and don't care, or it's kind of just like Dallas can't be taking him serious. I would call Kyrie's bluff if he was just trying to shake them down for more money. Like, all right, you're gonna not take our contract or take way less than you're worth. It doesn't make any sense to me. In Harden, I don't really entertain any of it because I don't think he's that good anymore. So I kind of just don't think the Suns even need a piece like that to begin with. We've all thought, like, if we do a sign and trade with DA, we're getting wings and people that can guard. Like, we're going like grit and grind for pieces for DA. Like, we got the scoring down. Like, we don't really need more finesse, more ball handlers. I can't believe I just said that. We don't really need any more like real ball handlers anymore right now, which is a problem that we had for like the last 2 years. So yeah, like I think we kind of need the stuff that like got us to the championship. We need size and we need like length, and we need dudes that are willing to do kind of the dirty work. And that's the pieces we would need for DA, other than like two older dudes that need the ball all the time.
So that's all right. I guess. So to clarify with Harden, he opted into his contract, which is unexpected because we were talking all summer, dating back to December on Christmas, about Rockets or Sixers. So It had never even really been talked about that he could opt in, not become a free agent, not take any sort of new contract from the Sixers or anything else. These, cap people on Twitter have already clarified that basically there's no possibility of an extension now if you were to do this. So it's just about who's going to trade for him on an expiring contract and then roll into next year with the uncertainty. So that's why he's being discussed. Kyrie is being discussed because he's an actual free agent and apparently is going to be taking a meeting on Friday with the Suns. Do you believe they're actually going to have a meeting?
The Suns wouldn't leak anything like that, so it has to be Kyrie's people. And when it's with Kyrie's people, he could just be saying it. It's been a thing since, like, even since we traded for KD, they've kept it out there that they still want to keep playing with each other, and they wanted to play with each other before. So I think that part you kind of have to keep paying attention to. But we don't get stuff leaked like that. We went through the whole week like, oh, Miami might get Bradley Beal. That makes sense for them. And then all of a sudden we have Bradley Beal. Like, that's how it happens for us. So I think that if it was anything like that, we would have found out the day of or while it was in the process of happening. Like, that's the only way stuff happens for us now. And the Beal thing kind of lets me know now that James Jones keeps KD. We didn't know till that night. We all got the notification. Like, all of the big stuff that happens gets leaked or isn't true. Like, the Chris Paul thing got leaked. That was Chris Paul's people leaking that. That wasn't the Suns. Whenever something's in the Suns organization and it's going to happen, we don't know till it's happening. And that's why I don't think the Kyrie thing is real. Agreed.
Talked to Wes Goldberg, who covers the Heat on the Just Basketball show, about this because it came out right as we were about to hit record. And he reminded me of the Jalen Brunson Heat meeting last year. Do you remember this? How it was like Dallas or New York. And then at the last second, to get a little bit of extra money, Brunson's people tried to leak that he was taking a meeting with Miami. And then the Heat came out and said, no, we're not.
Oh.
Yeah, so that was just last year. So he was like, there very well could be no meeting, and the Suns will have to kind of reverse leak that it's not happening. To close us out on this, agreed. I don't even think 10%. That's just the number I threw out. These things both seem insane. They seemed insane from the beginning, even when Chris Paul was still on this team and that big trade possibility was still there. It didn't make a lot of sense. I agree with you that they're not really players who make sense on any version of this team, but especially one now with Beal here. And I just don't think either one of these guys is really, even if we think of them both as a little, unique, neither one of them is probably in the business of just sacrificing millions and millions of dollars.
Yeah.
So especially Kyrie, who, has lost the Nike deal and is not a very desired piece, right now. Like, he should just take whatever the Mavs give him. And maybe he asked for a trade in a year anyway, but I don't know why he wouldn't just do that. Harden seemed like he was trying to use this whole thing to get more money. So why would he take anything less than what he can get? So I don't think it makes any sense. Let's talk about something that makes a little bit more sense, which is Eric Gordon, who got bought out yesterday and is obviously somebody the Suns have chased for a long time. He might be the name second to Devin Booker, who I've said most on this podcast. I'm not even sure, to be honest with you, but we'll get into him and why he still makes sense for this team next. First, today's show brought to you by Prize Picks. Prize Picks came in, fixed daily fantasy sports. You know that already if you've heard me talk about how much I love them. And it's true. I really do, because I'm the type of person that daily fantasy is not for me. I always lose. There's people who are better at it. I only can handle like one or two fantasy leagues during the season, no matter what sport it is, because I'm just going to start forgetting and wasting my money. Prize Picks is easy. You just play when you want to. There's no pool. There's no head-to-head. There's no leagues, nothing. It is just you versus the Prize Picks player projections. They offer projections on any sport you love, men's and women's basketball, golf, tennis, stuff during the summer, as well as football and college sports in the fall. Entries can be made in a minute or less. They offer safe and fast withdrawals. And they're currently operational in more than 30 states, including Arizona, as well as Canada. So download the Prize Picks app now or go to prizepicks.com. Sign up and play daily fantasy sports today. First-time users can receive 100% instant deposit match up to $100 when you use the promo code Locked On, meaning if you deposit 100, Prize Picks matches that right back into your account. Don't forget to enter the promo code Locked On and sign up for that instant deposit match up to $100. All right, let's talk about something that's a little more in the realm of possibility, Aaron, which is Eric Gordon. I just think he was still pretty solid last year. And there were a lot of people, I know, when it was like the one move they had to make at the deadline, why people started to sour on him from a Suns standpoint. He's 34. He was not going to be the answer to get the version of the Suns team pre-KD to a championship. Yeah. I don't disagree with that, but I still just think as a bench guard who can shoot the ball, handle it a little bit, and obviously he's a 34-year-old version of himself. He's not prime Houston years at 29, 30 in terms of defense, but he still is a big player who plays smart on defense. I think if you're getting him on the minimum, like, that's a guy who can really play for you in the playoffs potentially, and would be one of the, honestly, like, of the names we know right now, one of the legitimate best options that they have available to them.
Yeah, he has experience in big games, and I think that Draymond, he said something before, like, with second units, like, you don't really want them to get a lead. You just want them to slow the pace down while everybody gets a rest. And I think he can do that. Like, he's smart enough. He's been in enough games to where in big moments he can slow the pace down and still get to the line. He's still got that big body. He can shoot still. I mean, he shot pretty bad against us in the playoffs. But, like, for the most part, like, for the time that he's going to be out there, I think he'd really be fine for us. It was some people, like, against it because they're like, Book was cooking him in the playoffs. So I was like, yeah, what Booker was doing was to everybody. Like, it wasn't just Eric Gordon. Eric Gordon was getting cooked, but Book was just going to do that to whoever was in front of him at that point. Yeah,
42% from deep with the Clippers. In the regular season, 35% with Houston, so that's good for 37 total. He's at like 3 assists a year at this point for the most part in his career. Shot 35% in the playoffs. And then defensively, I know that the all-in-one numbers aren't everything, but he was like a slight minus defensively with the Clippers in the regular season, slight minus in the playoffs. Like, he's not going to be a game changer, but when you're talking about him versus Damian Lee, even, who I think they will still re-sign. But if you're telling me, which one would you rather have playing minutes for you in the playoffs or something, like that's the Suns' options right now. I would pick Damian Lee. So the options are coming out right now, kind of as we're talking, because a lot of these teams set the options for the day before free agency. And Nickeil Alexander-Walker is an interesting one to me. We also have Taurean Prince and some other guys. I think there's going to be a lot of players like that are an interesting kind of test on who do the Suns actually attract to kind of reset their careers, even if they are a little younger, versus who, like, do they get another Josh Okogie? And I think Alexander Walker is probably better than Josh Okogie was last year, but can they get a couple of those guys? I don't know. But is there anybody that's caught your attention besides Gordon, whether it's Alexander Walker or not, who intrigues you maybe on the younger end with some of these options that you think is realistic for the Suns?
When Prince when they didn't pick his contract up, I was like, yes, length. And like, that's pretty much what I'm looking for us now. Like I'm pretty like Vogel. We got to realize like we have a defensive coach and we got a lot of the pieces that he cares about, but doesn't care about that much figured out. Like he's got to start filling in like the length parts that we need. Like we have the shooting parts figured out. I know he wants to be taller. We've always been one of like the shorter teams, but I know he likes having tall teams. So I think we're going to go length and defense. And I like the Prince thing a lot.
Yeah, that's a good point. I mean, and it tracks with kind of even like what they've been doing with their summer league team. Obviously the second round pick, Kamara, and it's what he did with the Lakers, right? Like at times Caruso is the smallest guy on the court for that team, and he plays bigger than he is, and he's a really strong guy. So, you think about some of the lineups they had out there with like Caruso, Danny Green, LeBron, Kuzma, AD, or even AD at the 4 and LeBron at the 3, and then like Dwight or JaVale or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's I think what the blueprint is going to be. I like Yuta Watanabe. I know, some of this stuff is stuff we've said before and names that have come up before. I just saw Dwayne Washington got a qualifying offer. I didn't even know that he ended up on the Knicks. How did that happen?
I didn't either.
Congrats to Dwayne Washington Jr. If you had to guess, this is an interesting way to tie a bow on it, because I do want to talk about Beal a little bit. I have a take, or at least a way of looking at Beal after kind of hearing from him today. But would you guess the Sun, which number is bigger? The number of guys that the Suns re-sign from their current roster, or the number of new minimum guys that they bring on in this like next week or so?
The wild card is campaigned, but I think that the guys that we bring back.
That's kind of where I am too. I mean, you just think, we already heard Damian Lee. That was from Mark Stein. They extended a qualifying offer to Jock Landale, which tells me they're probably going to bring him back. They already did the option on Wainwright. So that's already 3 before you even get to Okogie,
Torrey Craig,
Biyombo, Torrey Craig, who is a big one because he can make quite a bit of money and be a potentially tradable contract. Although we don't assume the Suns are going to be able to actually do many trades because they can't combine contracts. But even just having one guy that can be flipped for one guy. I think so. If Payne is sort of the friend, like the difference maker on that end, I'll just say I feel like the difference maker on the other end is whether they're able to use that trade exception. Because that could be like yet another guy that they do bring in. I talked about Daniel House. I tweeted about him. That's like a perfect salary size. I think Kyra Lewis. There was a report today. He's like the Pelicans guard that never really plays, but was pretty hyped coming out of Alabama. I think he makes too much money to fit into the exception, but guys like that are going to be the ones you look at. Teams that just have a roster crunch who kind of make more than the minimum, but aren't super tradable and everything else. That's an option for the Suns. We'll have to see what they do.
I also think Beasley didn't get picked up either, but I think he's going to be too expensive.
Malik Beasley. Yeah, I just saw that one. He's an interesting one because I'm like, is he a Vogel player? Is he not a Vogel player? I can't get brain wrapped around when I see names to like, I had like the Monty filter in my brain.
I think like dudes like Bruce Brown would be like a Vogel guy. Like I think he would take that, but Bruce Brown's about to get paid, so that would never happen. Yeah. I'm not saying Bruce Brown would be a son. He's
not
gonna
literally him, but guys like that. Yeah, I mean, I'm hopeful Okogie can be even better under Vogel. Honestly, like he might be that Jordan Goodwin too, who can help us transition to Bradley Beal. Bradley Beal hyped Jordan Goodwin up, but he also talked about coming to Phoenix and how new it all felt for him, which I don't think is something that's gotten talked about enough. And I want to talk about some recent reset players, especially from small markets and losing teams, and what that kind of change can do for a player. First, today's show brought to you by Game Time, which has been my hookup. We're planning a trip, quick little weekend trip to Seattle in August to get out of the heat and everything else. And Game Time has me covered for a bunch of the stuff we've been looking at, not just Mariners tickets and whatever I've been looking at on the sports side, but also concerts, comedy, theater, and more. The Game Time guarantee also means you'll get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section in a row, Game Time credits you 100% of the difference, 110% of the difference, sorry. You can also get images of your seat view before you buy tickets quickly, and get them sent directly to your phone so you never have to dig through your email. All you have to do is download the Game Time app, whether you're going out of town or you just want to get tickets to something in the Valley. The Diamondbacks tickets probably going to be hot commodities here in the not-too-distant future if they keep this playoff push going. Download that app, create an account, use the code LOCKEDONNBA to get $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account, redeem the code LOCKEDONNBA for $20 off your first purchase on the Game Time app. Download Game Time today. Last minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. All right, closing things out. I'm interested to hear if you have any examples of this, Aaron, but this was what was kind of going through my head. I watched the Beal thing on YouTube. I had a haircut appointment, and I don't usually ask questions and stuff like that anyway, so I decided to skip it. But I was watching and saw him talking a lot about just what a new kind of chapter for him as a person this was going to be, which I guess I thought of it because the whole reason he got the trade, the no trade clause, is because he had been on that team for so long and everything, and the contract and whatever, but I hadn't really thought about it in the terms of like what it would mean to start fresh. And honestly, I thought about Paul George coming out of Indiana to the Clippers, although I know he went to the Thunder first. Either way you want to look at it, the Thunder was kind of a pit stop. And then finally getting to a big market with all due respect to Russell Westbrook, like an even better player with Kawhi, an even deeper team, a real championship contender. And he kind of was able to prove like I can do more. And he put that team on his back to get them to the conference finals and take a couple games and make that 2021 series pretty competitive, as Suns fans will remember. Durant is obviously one going to the Warriors.
That was going to be it.
Yeah. Tell me, like, do you buy it, or am I just like drinking the Kool-Aid from this press conference thing? I feel like that can make a difference for a guy to just have a reset, not just with basketball, but I'm in a new place and I'm trying something new and I can kind of rejuvenate myself.
Yeah, I think like location does change for some of these dudes. He's been there for a long time, and he kind of did the whole like believed in the franchise, and he did like he took the max and all that stuff, but he stuck it out. And I think the fact that he did it that way, I think and still tried to hoop. The games that he missed, they were all like weird stuff. It was the bubble didn't play in that, the wrist thing, and it seems like they just shut him down and just went into tank mode. I think a lot of that was just going into tank mode stuff. So yeah, I think the health thing has sort of been blown out of proportion, but people get rejuvenated in Phoenix a lot too. It's not one of those unheard of things. Shaq was hurt all the time, and the second he got here, it was like the most games he had played in like 2 years in a row. Grant Hill, we saved his knees. Like I think once a lot of people get here, they kind of their bodies just change, I guess. And yeah, I can see that.
The funny thing about that one is it was Aaron Nelson who was here on the training staff, and he got all the hype and then went to New Orleans and they just fired him over some disagreements about Zion Williamson. So he's an older guy. He had a long career. I don't know if he's in a hurry to get back into the NBA, but that's a weird one how that all played out after what he did here in Phoenix. But yeah, I mean, whether it's that or just you look at it and it's like in Washington, Beal only had 3 coaches, and I'm not really even sure, do you count the past 2 years under Wes Unseld? They were not exactly trying to compete for a championship. And even if you do count Unseld, between him, Scott Brooks, and Randy Whitman, which I'm not even sure people remember who that man is, like those four, I think he was a former player too, but those three guys, not exactly like the cream of the crop from a coaching standpoint. They were a competitive team for a lot of that. I'm not trying to discount. They had 3 second round appearances with Beal and Wall, but that brings us to his best teammate, which is which is John Wall.
I was getting
right?
to that part. Yeah.
And so I don't know if you caught any of it, but it was kind of interesting to me how much he was talking about deferring to Booker. Like Bradley Beal's like 4 years older than Devin Booker, but he was kind of saying like, this is Book's town. I'm ready to learn from him, and I'm going to develop the championship habits that this kind of organization already has. It was like a pretty impressive amount of humility from a dude who makes $50 million and is 30 and has been in this league for a long time already.
Yeah, it was wild hearing that, but you hear around the league, like I remember even before Booker like went kind of mainstream, like KD would be on a pod with Bill Simmons and he'd be like, yeah, like Book, like y'all need to watch out for him. The Olympics, people came back being like, that dude Devin Booker, like it was one of those things that was kind of building up. So you kind of knew the rep was already out there. And the fact that he stuck it out and he went to the finals with Chris Paul and like all that, like he stayed here and he stuck it out and he just still kept hooping. And I think he kind of earned a lot of players' respect doing that because he does it in such a way that, I don't know, it kind of doesn't rub the players that like hooping the wrong way. And that's what they got. Like KD loves playing basketball. In the Paul George pod, it was like KD will play basketball all day if you let him. And I think Book's that type of person too. And it rubs off on people. So I can see why Bill would be into it.
Yeah, it does seem like, I don't know what kind of person Beal is, but that's obviously true. I mean, Chris Paul had that same response. You know, it took like a little bit of working out together for him to be sold on that whole thing. So it wouldn't surprise me. And I do, I mean, it seems like Vogel is a respected coach. I mean, a title goes a long way, but I think also being able to coach Anthony Davis and LeBron James and kind of handle that and be successful at it. Like, I think that probably goes a long way. It's one thing to be like, yeah, it took the Pacers to a couple competitive, you know, playoff appearances. Like, okay, great. But when you do it in LA and you do it with superstars, it's another level. The other funny part of it to me was the stuff about Book going to Flagstaff a lot and Beal wanting to be shown around. I don't understand how does Devin Booker just stay in his cabin and have like assistants go to the grocery store for him and whatnot?
Just like Book walking around Flagstaff just doesn't. It doesn't.
That is
right.
The picture that was in my head. I'm like, that's not a big town. How would he not be seen? I know he posts on Instagram like the camping and like the old truck and everything.
Yeah.
But that was funny to me. I don't exactly have a great concept of. I don't think what's the astronomy like facility up there. I don't think Book is just like taking tours of that. That man moves in silence, but he might be the best thing that ever happened to this team. Just
I think this season, I'm not sure, like the Chris Paul void is going to be different in a way because I think Monty kind of let Chris Paul be the asshole. And I think Vogel has it in him to be that. But one of the players is going to have to be that now. They're going to have to be the voice anyway. And KD hasn't been here long enough. It is going to be a lot of new people still. So it's going to like, is Book going to graduate to that part of having his own team is all right, I've been to the finals. I was all NBA. I'm a max player. I got to be the asshole sometimes. And I want to see if he's ready to make that jump. Not like in the level that Chris Paul does it, obviously, because that does rub people the wrong way sometimes. But I think, is he ready to be that voice? Because it does seem like Monty kind of deferred to Chris Paul to be the bad guy. And sometimes one of the players has to be the bad guy.
I wonder if that'll help with some of having Vogel, who doesn't really have a relationship with any of these guys in a way. You know, I think that's part of what worked with the Lakers is like, I'm going to come in here and establish a defense. I'm kind of going to let you do your thing offensively. I'm going to have assistants who maybe are a little younger, a little more player-centric, a little bit more offensively inclined. You do your job, I'm going to do my job, and we'll just sort of go to work. Like, that's kind of what it seems like Vogel's approach is like, we're all here with the same goal. As long as no one steps out of line, we won't have any issues. But it almost seems like Vogel's thing is like, it doesn't need to be talked about. Whereas not to be like overly blunt, but kind of all Monty wanted to do was talk about it at times, right?
Yeah.
Like that was his main thing, was I'm going to be the guy who always talks about culture and everything else, where I think that can wear on you. And Chris is the same way.
Yeah, I think that at the end of the day, like having your two main best guys being strictly all about hooping, and that's easy to follow. When your two best guys are just about playing basketball and they're just like, follow me. If you want to hoop, you can be a part of this team and we will be fine. If you are all about hooping, that's easier to do than all the culture and like the isms and all that stuff. I think once it just comes down to basketball, it's a lot easier.
There was also, and I'm on the record saying this during the playoffs, so I'm not just saying it to try to pump up how this will all play out now that I heard Beal do the intro, but there was a very obvious thing developing toward the end of last season into the playoffs of Booker becoming the leader of this team. You could see it on the court. It wasn't always Chris chewing guys out. Yeah. Book was more demonstrative in ways that weren't just like courtside fans or refs, but like actually about stuff on the court and in the game and mistakes that were happening and all this stuff. And you would hear a lot of people talking post game and everything else about, yeah, it was Book who said this. It was Book who said that. Book's the guy. And so that evolution is going to be interesting. Just seeing with Chris Paul gone and Beal in here, and Beal already sort of ready to kind of follow Book's lead, even though they do have that age gap. And we know the relationship that KD and Book already seem to have, going to the Bahamas together for Lord knows what reason. I think it's probably like the number one thing I'm interested in, but you just see that evolution and impact, that just going to a new, because like you said, geography a minute ago with Beal, it's also just like people. Like I wouldn't be surprised if there's certain guys whose names we don't even know who were, I mean, Tommy Shepard up until recently, right? That were literally there the whole entire time that Beal was there. Like, and you never know about trainers and like the assist, like the secretary for the GM who is more involved than, average fans ever know, or the PR people and stuff like that. Like, it's not that he hated any of those people, but like you just turn the page, and sometimes that just feels good. And everybody in this situation, I've said this a lot of times already too, everybody's already gotten paid here. Like there's no motivations here of like, I'm trying to get a contract, or I'm trying to get traded, or I'm trying to prove this and prove that. Pretty much all Beal needs to prove is that he can win. And like, best way to do that is listen to everybody who's already done that and do what they say,
Yeah. And I think this late in your career and having this time while you still got it, this being your first chance at a real championship, I think you go into the season a little different with those kind of like odds on you. And he even said it. He was like, I haven't really had this type of people just really expect us to be great and win a championship. And people are going to be after our heads every night. And he's never really had that before. So I think that part, the newness of just that type of thing, is going to rejuvenate him too.
Just want to watch basketball, honestly. I mean, I'm excited for Friday, but that's what this time of year always makes me want, is just to watch the games. But that's okay. We'll get it in 3.5 months. The Suns will have a bunch of guys we've never heard of in summer league, and you just
got to watch a couple Cardinals games first,
or not watch any. Seeing all I need to see out of Colt McCoy, I'm not going to lie. I got it. I understand what the deal is with that. But all right, that'll wrap us up. Hoping for at least one bonus show over the weekend. Probably won't be a Kyrie or Harden to Phoenix show, but still interesting stuff. I mean, Eric Gordon, Kyle Lowry, you never know what's going to come up. The Suns seem to be pretty confident that they'll get some guys. We'll talk about all of them. Hit follow or subscribe. We're free and available everywhere. We're here every day. That'll wrap us up. I'll talk to you tomorrow.